Hi, I'm here to talk about a little bit about the scoring for the beginning of the year and looking at our responses as an error analysis versus correct or incorrect. So as we know, the check-ins test prior grades knowledge. So in an ideal world, they would have come in knowing everything and we could just go jump right into grade level content. However, we know that we don't live in a utopia, so we have to see what the students remember from last year's instruction and how it can support and drive this year's instruction. So the check-ins have the questions, and this is an example of a second grade. And there's three different problems for question number one. And what you're looking for are common errors and misconceptions. So these are research-based. They're not going to find every error that a student can possibly do on a test. And sometimes the students just pick random numbers. That's okay. We're looking for errors that can be fixed with instruction, common errors that most of your students will have. These are ones from research. Again, our kids have not read research, so sometimes we're going to get some errors that come up that are maybe school or regional based on how our instruction is going versus how, research thinks instruction goes. If it's not on the list, just make a little note on yourself. If it's something that you see multiple students doing, then we know we need to pull a small group. If a student gives an answer that really is like out of the blue, like why did they put 2 there? You couldn't figure it out. Well, then in reality, that can't drive our instruction because if we can't deduce how they would have gotten that answer, then we can't figure out their thinking, so we can't help them overcome their misconception. So we don't want to spend a ton of time trying to, fix random numbers that kids pull out of the air. So we're trying to get support for instruction. So the foundational lessons in the unit provide you time. There's some ideas in there, but you're going to really look at your class data. If your class all scored really well, you don't have to do that foundational learning. You could jump right into grade level content. Sometimes it might be 1 or 2 students. So when you're doing the lesson that foundational understanding is needed for, you might just do, when you're doing your introduction and connecting to prior knowledge, you might bring up that misconception. Or when you're instructing grade level content, you might just question the students, the 1 or 2 students that were struggling with it and just kind of give them that extra check. Again, it's not going to find everything. We've gotten some feedback. Yes, there's not a button to push, like the students just skipped the problem. So we will add that on future check-ins. In the meantime, this is the first one, so that it would be a pattern that you might want to look at over time if students skip errors based on frustration level. That's a different discussion than necessarily a math discussion, but it is something that we do want to monitor. But again, we're looking for examples where that are common that we can fix as instructional facilitator versus they got it right or wrong. Remember, if the students had no misconceptions and all the answers were correct, you want to look to see if there's any evident strategies. If there's no evident strategies on the paper or you didn't observe them during the test, for example, if they were using base 10 blocks or Unifix cubes during the test, you can also mark that down as making models. Or if they're using their fingers, you could say that's counting on. So when you're observing them take the test, you can also be observing for strategies. There's no common strategies. You could do mental math. They can have more than one misconception in a problem because there are multiple steps to the problem, and they might use more than one strategy throughout the test. That's okay. We're looking for patterns and structures. If our students are all using their fingers and counting on, we want them to start using those concrete or representational models. If they're using those, we want them to use properties or decomposition strategies. And once they've got those down, we want them to use that mental math. So it's kind of like a progression of strategies. And I think that's all the questions. Just a lot of the problems were chosen specifically to highlight specific strategies. For example, in this second grade one, the first problem was developed for like doubles plus 1. This one was make a 10 strategy, and this one was counting on. So they're purposely done for different strategies or a progression of complexity. If you have any other questions, just keep sending them to your ISSs, and we'll do another refresher as needed. Thanks. Bye.